Red Bull has been dominant all season long, excluding their early season stumble out of the gates. And as we now head to Japan Grand Prix in Suzuka this weekend, Max Verstappen has a chance to wrap up the Drivers' Championship battle with a perfectly executed weekend. So, what has been the secret to Red Bull's dominance all season long? Did the team purposely sabotage Max in Singapore last weekend? And how is Max feeling about the possibility of his 2021 title being stripped by the FIA? Well, let's talk about it then. But before we do, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on our latest uploads. Now that's out of the way, let's get started. 2022 marked the start of a new set of regulations that the FIA had put in place to make better and more thrilling races. And with that came questions as to which team would adapt the best to the new set of regulations. And as we now slowly wrap up the 2022 season, Red Bull have undoubtedly done the best at figuring out the puzzle that is the 2022 regulations. So much so that teams like Aston Martin have blatantly copied Red Bull's design concept. So what is so special about Red Bull's design that makes them tough to beat then? Well, an unnamed Mercedes engineer believes that the secret to Red Bull's success can be found in their floor design. Back in 1994, the hydraulic or active suspension was banned from F1, but it seems as though Red Bull has been able to achieve a similar effect through the use of conventional dampers and springs. The Red Bull has the highest ground clearance at the rear when stationary and the lowest at high speed, said the Mercedes engineer. Doing something like that with a conventional chassis takes up space and weight. We didn't have one or the other. The effect of this genius engineering was in display in the Singapore Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen was by far the quickest driver on track, despite often having to deal with traffic. At the 4 speed traps, he was quicker than Ferrari by between 5.5 and 7.9 kilometers per hour, while he was between 4.8 and 6.7 kilometers per hour ahead of Mercedes. Verstappen's competitors would also point out just how fast the Red Bull was during the race with Aston Martin's Sebastian Vettel, saying, "He drops his tail and flies past you," while Ferrari's Charles Leclerc would say, "It's not just about aerodynamics, there's something mechanical behind it." But even with a sizable speed advantage over his competitors, Verstappen's chance of sealing his second Drivers' Championship was ruined by his own team. Just before Verstappen crossed the finish line in his final run of Q3 in Singapore, Verstappen was suddenly told to box by his pit wall as the car was running low on fuel to have enough for the FIA to check. While boxing, Verstappen rained down expletives on the team radio, but team boss Christian Horner would brush off these words from Verstappen by saying, "I mean, he obviously blew a valve, but it's completely understandable and I think we were pushing too much for the optimum. The track ramped up, we got an extra lap in, so we were perfectly positioned to be the last car effectively over the line. But the fuel was just too marginal, and rather than take the risk of not being able to produce a sample and start from the pit lane, we took the tough decision to abort the lap. We realized about 2 corners before the pit lane, and it was right on the edge, and it was a question of, look, we just can't afford to take this risk." While Christian was very supportive of his driver, Sky Sports F1 pundit Martin Brundle believes that Verstappen's actions were unwarranted. Max Verstappen should have been on pole position, but staying out on track for most of the final Q3, 12 minutes, meant that he was forced to abandon his final pole lap 2 corners from home in order to have enough fuel for the mandatory scrutineering checks, said Brundle. Cue an extremely unhappy championship leader, and he let the team know in no uncertain terms. Barely underneath the surface of the calm and serene 2022 Max 2.0 is still quite a temper, but actually my take on that, as he heads to an inevitable second championship, is just how much pain a lost pole position and potential victory means to him, despite his and the team's current dominance. Mika Hakkinen, another former F1 driver turned pundit, would chime in and say that the team purposely denied Max of sealing his second Drivers' Championship title. This was a weekend when Max could have won the World Championship, but the mistake by the team in qualifying on Saturday really cost him, wrote Hakkinen in his Unibet column. It is quite unusual for a team to ask a driver to abort a qualifying lap, especially one which was actually looking pretty good, but to then discover you don't have enough fuel to complete another lap was embarrassing. Red Bull has been operationally very strong all season, so this was pretty surprising. I think a lot of people expected Max to recover well from 8th place on the grid, but the conditions meant he made a poor start and then lost time fighting in the midfield. This was a weekend to forget. These kinds of races happen, even in a season where you are extremely competitive, and you just have to move on and focus on making sure the next weekend goes much better. I have no doubt the Red Bull will suit the Suzuka circuit in Japan this weekend, and that Max can claim the title. The team just needs to make sure that they don't make any more mistakes. Apart from the qualifying sessions and race day in Singapore, Red Bull as a whole had a stressful time throughout the week after speculations surfaced that the team went over the budget cap for the 2021 season. And while nothing is certain yet until Monday, as expected, Red Bull's rival team of the 2021, Mercedes, has been quite vocal, as everyone might expect. In a recent interview, Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton would give his 2 cents about the situation by saying, "What I can say is I remember last year in Silverstone, we had our last upgrade, and fortunately it was great and we could fight with it. But then we would see Red Bull every weekend or every other weekend bringing upgrades. They had, I think, at least 4 more upgrades from that point. If we spent £300,000 on a new floor or adapted a wing, it would have changed the outcome of the championship naturally, because we would have been in better competition in the next race if you add it on. So I hope that that's not the case." Now, as we all can remember, the 2021 season was a back-and-forth battle up to the very last lap of the very last race between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, which ended in Max pulling an upset over Lewis to win his first ever driver's title. But with the speculations that the team had overspent last season, it proved to be true. Max may be stripped of his 2021 title by the FIA. Max would be asked about the possibility of being stripped of his 2021 title, to which he would reply with, "I mean, that's normally what should have been the case already, right? I think we have our reasons to believe that we're good. So that's what I've been told, and we'll find out on Monday." He would then be asked about his comments about what Lewis had said about the situation, and whether or not he was affected by it. Max would reply with, "No, but it's something between the team and the FIA, and it's not really up to me. I'm here to drive fast and try to give the best result to the team." And there you have it, guys. So is it a done deal now that Max will seal his win at Suzuka? What should the FIA do if Red Bull indeed went over the budget cap? Let us know in the comment section below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't.